Hi and welcome to another Java tutorial, and today we're going to look at how to build Java application using Visual Studio Code, and today we're going to look at user interface. So there are two user interface available if you want to develop a Java application. Either you can use a CLI based user interface, or you can use a graphical user interface. So in this video, we're going to look at the graphical user interface and how to build them using Java. So let's start with creating new project. So select command palette and create new Java project. So here, when you select a new Java project, you'll be given a series of options. And here we're going to use very basic Java, which is no build tools. So when you select the no build tool, you'll be asked with selecting the location of the Java project. So let's select a folder. So here we create this under Java project folder and then provide with the application name. So let's give a name basic Java GUI. All right, so this is a very basic Java GUI. So we're going to build the application using the name. All right, so here what we have is an empty project, which is available with the app.java. So the way that Visual Studio Code structure the project is, you can see through the Explorer here, and the Java project is available in this app.java inside the source folder. So this is just a simple public class with a public static void main. And if you run this, you should be able to get basic terminal output. So if you want to see the terminal output, you can just go to the terminal options and then see the output through here. There. All right, so this is the terminal, and then you can see the output there, hello world. But here we're going to look at how to build Java GUI. So we're going to use, or we're going to modify the app.java so that we can run application with graphical user interface. So to create a graphical user interface, we can start by defining or designing our user interface. So let's start with a very simple design. And here I'm going to use Microsoft Paint just to demonstrate the idea. So let's say like if you want to develop a simple GUI, so let's say that this is the window of the application. And the window of the application basically contain the top header up here, and this is basically just for the app bar. We call it the app bar, and it contains the minimize, maximize, and close button somewhere up here. All right, so inside the frame or the graphical user interface here, so let's say we want to start with just a very simple calculator application. So let's start with a simple input. And for our calculator, we need two inputs. So we have the second input here for the user to enter. So when user enter the first number and the second number. All right. So next we need a button. So you might need to have a button down here, and this button basically for the operation. And for the output, maybe we can just put it down here for the output. So result of the operation. And if we want to label, we can just use input or number 1 or first number, and then we can just label the second one, second number. All right, so that basically the idea of this UI. Even it is very, very simple design, just to demonstrate how to actually build the UI. All right, so once we have the user interface defined, so we can start our application development. So we're going to start with defining all the elements that we're going to use in here. So we're going to use, we have two text field that we have defined, three tags or label, we call it label here. This is the first level, second level, and then result. We have two text field for user input, and then we have one button for the operation. So you have yourself input, process, output, a very typical application. All right, so now we're going to define that. First, we're going to have in Java, here for the user interface, we're going to use a simple UI design, the UI development. We're going to use everything just very static UI, and we're going to start with text field and also label. All right, so we're going to have two text field. So the text field basically handled by jtext field, and through the swing library. So we start with Java text field. So we have two, JTF Java text field num A, and then we have JTF num B. All right, so we have two text field, and then next we need the tags. All right, so notice that when we define the JText field here, it will automatically import the swing classes into the project. So if it didn't, so you might need to do import on your own. For example, hover on top of the JText field and then click import JText field swing. All right, so once you have that, another component that you need is JLabel. So we need to define JLabel. So this is also another library for displaying the tags label. So we have JLabel. So JLabel, let's say A, and then JLabel B. Another one for JLabel result. So we have three label in the user interface. And next we have button. So for button, we have JButton, and we can define there's only one button there, JButton. Let's say for simple operation add. All right, so once we define all the user interface elements, so now we can start with designing the user interface itself. So to design the user interface, we can start by creating just a simple method handling the user interface design. So I'm going to create a new private method at the bottom here inside this class called void, let's say call it main interface. All right, so this is just a method, a simple method that we call, and just to make everything more clear in this case. So to start with the user interface, we need to define, there's one more element that we haven't yet defined, which is the frame itself, the user interface frame. All right, so the frame is the the whole UI container here that contain all the elements. So we define a frame called JFrame. So JFrame also comes from Swing class. So JFrame. All right, so we start with the user interface with the frame itself. So call JFrame object equal new frame, so new JFrame. So this one should be F capital. All right, so we define the frame, and then we define first label. Okay, so we start with the label. The first label is JLabel A. So JLabel A equal new JLabel. All right, so we define the first label. The label properties that we can define is set text. So the set text here are basically responsible for this for the content of the text. So let's say we define its first number, and then next we need to set what we call as bound of its location in the user interface. In this example, or in this tutorial, I did not use what we call as the layout manager. So everything here is going to be static and bounded to the user interface. So let's start with the set bound for the first label. So we set bound. So the set bound basically comes with four parameters, which is x, y, width, and height. Okay, so the x and y is the location of the label inside the frame UI. So let's start with a very simple location. Okay, let's start with location 10, and set the width for the elements. So we give it a width set to 100 pixel, and height we set to, let's say, start with 40. Okay, so now we have that label defined. Next step is to we need to add that this label into the frame. So to do that, we can just use add to the frame, which is the JLA. Right, so that basically the first element that we have. If we wanted to try, or wanted to see the element, we need to define the element. We need to run the project. So if you run as it is, we are not able to get anything out of this, because of the application basically run an empty main method. So if we wanted to test the UI, what we have done here, so we need to define our class. We need to be able to call the main method. So the main method, we can call it through either we can define the class object, such as follows, new app, and then we can just call app main, the object with the main interface, and then we need to set the frame size before we're able to run, because we have one element and then the label and also the frame, but we haven't yet defined the frame size. Okay, so we need to define the frame size. All right, so we need to define the frame size, which is by using the set size. The set size of the frame, let's say we start with with 480 times, let's say 800. Right, so those, hold on, the name of the objects, JFrame, set size width 480, height 800 pixel, and then we set the frame, JFrame set layout, which is we didn't use any layout manager, so we're going to define the layout as null, no layout manager use, and then we define the visibility to true. Right, so this set visible, sorry, set visible. Right, so set the visibility to true. So this should allow us to get the basic user interface with a label inside the UI. So let's try to run this project and see the result. Now you can see that there's a layout there with 480 times 800, and there's a label inside this UI, first number. So we can move from here, and then we should be able to get or understand the logic here. So now we can move on, work on the rest of the layout. So let's say that the second label, this is for the first label, and then I'm just going to copy paste and work from there. Right, so it's a label, sorry, this is label B, missing there. Right, and then this one for the second number. So set the location. So set the location for the second label, and then here we add the label to the frame. All right, so this is for the second label. So let's see if you want to see the result. But before that, you need to change the location of X and Y. So the X and Y, we need to change where it should be. So let's say at the bottom of the X, let's say set to 40 and try to rerun the application. All right, so now we have first, second number, should be there already. There, here, first number and second number. And then we need our text field, so we can have our text field. So the text field basically the same. So text field equal new JText field, and then basically it is the same with label. So we need for the text field we need to set bound. So the set bound here, JTF num a dot set bound. So we need to be very careful with the location. So the location is going to be the same y-axis, which is 10, but with the x-axis moved to the right. Let's say we set it to let establish 100. Right, so let's see, or maybe we set up 50. All right, so now we add this label to the frame. All right, so save and then reload. Let's see if we manage to get. All right, we need to be to the right a little bit. So the size, the height also is quite big. So let's limit that to. Sorry, let's limit that to maybe 30, and the location here to 100 pixel. Right, so let's reload that. So a little bit to the right, but we might need to move small, let's say 120. Right, so just to make sure that we have it to cover the second number. There you go. So those are the input for the first one, and then we can just use that as our base for the second text number, which is num B. So this is for num A, and then we can just copy paste and then put it into num B, and this is num B, and this is also num B, but we need to set location for the y-axis to 40, but the rest basically the same. So reload should be able to see for the second number there. Okay, so let's see this one and this one. All right, so that should cover it for the input. Next, we need a button. So yeah, basically the same with the text field with the label. So we can start with the button, which is a JB add. So JB add equal new J button add. So this one basically automatically add the text for the button if you want to do that, or you can use plus button for the labeling inside the button. And then we need to set the button location. So the button location also the same, but we need to set where the button should exist. So let's say we set the y-axis to, all right, we set the y-axis to, let's say 70, just to see if it is okay or not. So we want to add this to the frame, and then should be able to see the result, and we adjust accordingly. All right, so now we can see this is the button down there, input button, and then one more thing that we're missing here is the result. So we want to put the result at the bottom down here, right underneath the button. So that basically for the Java result label. So result label is basically label, and then inside here we can just set text JL result equal, set text, this one is result. Okay, and then we need to add that to the frame. Oh, sorry, we need to set the location first by using the SetBound. You just take it from this button here as our reference. Now we need to move the Y location to, let's say, 90. All right, so let's reload that. Let's see if we put the, oh, we did not yet put that to the frame, forgot about that. Add to the frame, and then we wanted to add the label. All right, so once we have that, let's restart. Okay, so down there, maybe you want to just a little bit lower. So let's say 110 location. All right, so that's the location. Right, so that's the location now. Input, process, output. So the result is going to be down here. All right, so that basically settle on the user interface. All right, so once we have the user interface ready, and then we are satisfied with the user interface, let's say like if you want to reduce the size of the frame, so you can just, let's say you want to set the height for the frame just shy under 400, so 400 by 400. So maybe if you want that the size itself to look like this. Okay, so just to control based on what you wanted. All right, so once we satisfy the user interface, next we want to move with the operation or with the actions. So here what we want to do is we want to get input from user and then press this button and the result should be displayed down here. So how do we do that? We need to add what we call as a button listener because we are dealing with this button. So the button will implement a listener that listen to the button action, which is in this case click action. All right, so the click action basically allow for the listener to listen for the button click. So how do we implement button listener? So to implement button listener, so we can just add the listener to the button. So our button is here. And then we can just add that button to the rightful listener, to the correct listener. So here JB underscore add, and then what we need now is we can add action listener. Okay, so we can add action listener, and inside here, all right, so we have it inside this listener here, which is will require a listener because there are two ways of doing that, but the one that I usually use, I can just add a custom listener here called, you can give it any name, add listener. Okay, so now we need to create this listener somewhere inside this class. So to create listener, we need to create the action listener itself, the action listener, and then the name of the listener, and then equal new action listener, and then okay, so now here we have the listener, but the listener here missing an important library because we can, for some reason, I cannot add the class library here, which is supposed to be available. But here what we need is to import a special library called, you can just import this manually by using the java.aw special AWT library for event handling, which is called action listener. All right, so this is an AWT library which allow us to use or implement this listener. All right, so now we have the listener available. So the listener basically will require to add what we call as an unimplemented method, which is the override method for the action listener, which handle the click event. All right, so whatever that we want to implement is basically inside this listener. All right, so the listener basically allow us to add actions perform with a click operation. So let's say that we want to get the value, both value from the text field, and then do some operation and display back there. So what we need now is to get the value. So let's say we use the just a simple integer operation. All right, integer num a equal, we want to get the value from the jtext field num a and jtext field num b. So the jtext field num a, or we can just straight get the value first, get the value first and then assign the value. So the value should come from get text method, but the problem is that when we get text, the string which is comes from the text field will require conversion. So we can convert first by using a special method. All right, so we need to do conversion. we need to convert this JText field string return value into integer. So we can use a special integer conversion value, which is integer dot parse integer, which will convert the string value that we get from text field into an integer. So this goes the same with the second number, second input, which is for num A, for num B, and then the text field from num B. So now we have the operation. We have the both number now in integer. So we can just straightforward goes to the operation. So let's say integer result equal num A plus num B, which is the output from the operation of num A and num B. And finally, we can set the value to our JText result with the new value by using the setText result. But in this case, we need to convert the result into string. We can just use concatenation. Let's say result concatenate with the value there. All right, so that basically the on-click operation, which is a very simple operation that retrieve number from two text field, perform operation, and finally set the result. So let's see the output, the result, the new, the updated application. So let's try to restart the application. And let's see if we can add two number. Let's say you want to add 5 with 3. When we press the button, we get the result at the bottom here. Let's say we try to add a much bigger number with plus. We should be able to get the output at the bottom of this. All right, so now you can see a very basic application, a simple calculator implemented through Java application. All right, so I hope that can help you a lot later when you develop Java GUI application. And of course, you can further expand this application, and there are more parameters available to each of the object here that you can play around, such as if you want to change the font, the size of the tags and whatnot. All right, so there are so many things that you can explore with this application, but this basically provide you with the basic how Java graphical user interface by using what we call as a static UI design, which allow you to implement Java graphical user interface. And I think that is all from me, and you can get the code from the link below. See you next tutorial. Bye bye.